What you see before you is a duck. So today I'm going to make duck orange. And this is not a kosher duck. So therefore you have to put salt into the cavity. Now if it was kosher duck, you wouldn't put any salt because they're already salted. And then pepper, yeah, put it inside. And then I'm going to put some mirepoix in there. I didn't put the amount. You can see how much there is there. With a bay leaf. I'm going to put that inside. I'm using rosemary, a couple of bay leaves, and you could use thyme if you wish. All of this will go in there. The oven has already been preheated. I shouldn't say preheated. It's been heated 450. Now, what we're gonna, there's a lot of fat there. So there's no reason to have this piece of fat that's tucked under the breast here in the cooking. It doesn't protect anything, so we'll just cut that out. When that melts, that's a lot of fat. So it's going to go in the oven on this rack. The liver that comes with it, I'm going to saute that and save it. But the rest, the heart, the neck, just put in there and let it cook with it. Just adds to the flavor. The gizzards. So we take the duck, we'll fold the wing bone underneath. Just take that, twist it around, and that's under. And that one's under. Place it on the rack, and you don't have to do anything to the duck. I have seen people, I don't want to mention names, I've seen people put oil on a duck, like you would do maybe a breast of chicken or whatever. But you know what? What's the duck made out of? Fat. That's it. Sitting on a rack, let all the grease go down into the pan, and I'm going to let it roast at a hot 450. Let this thing get color, and then we'll go from there. That's it. Very simple. Now, the rest of the ingredients, almost everything, excluding the flour for the roux, which will be made up, roux is made up of fat and flour. So we're not using butter, we're not using oil, and we're going to use the fat of the duck. Why? Because that's duck flavor. And then we have oranges, because it's orange sauce. Now I don't know if I'm going to use 2 or 3 whole oranges, but we are going to peel the orange, like so. And then we are going to julienne this, and quite a bit. And once we julienne that, we're going to put it into a little pot. I'm going to cut up a lot more and boil it to get rid of the bitterness. This is only for decoration. It'll be in the sauce later. So we'll have a good amount of that, which I'll show to you. Then the duck has to be roasted, and I'll show you the technique used to know when it's done. Then it has to cool down, because we're going to remove all the meat from the skeleton. And the bones we're going to try and break up with our hands as best we can and put it in a pot with this fresh, as you can see, this very fresh chicken stock, which I had already made some time ago. If you don't have a fresh chicken stock, and I mean fresh, don't use the cubes or the paste or anything. If you can't, then just deal with making the sauce using just the bones of the duck and water. So, and then at the very end, we're going to add just a little chambord to it. Now you can use triple sec, Gran Marnier, but I chose chambord today, even though it's an orange sauce, and that's not an orange liqueur. Too bad. That's what I chose. So what else is left? So it's really not, it's time intensive. Cooking the duck, I set the timer for a half hour, then I'm going to look at it. As soon as it gets color, then I'm going to cut it down to about 275. Because, you know, you cook something at high heat for too long, you just shrink the hell out of it, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go about peeling some more carrots, and then I'll show, orange carrots. And that's it. Next step will be look at the duck. Since this is for 2 people, that's the orange from 1 orange, julienne. Now I'm going to put this in water and let this simmer. I don't know, for about 20 minutes until it's soft. I'm not using any sweet products in this recipe. A lot of people put sugar, maybe brown sugar, orange marmalade. I don't want that. I want the natural taste of the duck, which is delicious, just with the oranges. All right, this is the orange I took the peel from. We need the meat from the orange to go into the sauce with the bones, so we're going to cut all of this off, because if you use any part of this, that's bitter. Now I'm going to start off using 2 oranges. Now if you use, these aren't juice oranges, if you use juice oranges, they usually have a better orange taste than these navel eating oranges, unless you get good ones. So then I'm going to cut this up, put it in with the bones, and cook it. Now that's the oranges that are going into make the sauce with the bones. That should give me enough orange flavor. Now I was going to use a little can of mandarin oranges sauteed in butter to put over the top, but I'm trying to keep this as fresh as possible. So I'll take another orange, peel it, and we want the sections only. So go down and twist up, and there you have a nice clean section. Any pits in there, take them out. We reserve that for later to saute in butter, and that'll go over the top with the julienne of orange peel. Seed, take it out. So that'll take care of all of that. And so far the duck has been in for a half hour, and I set it for another half hour at the same temperature, because it does take a long time. Now whatever items are ready, the stock is ready. The oranges are ready, so why not just cook the oranges in the stock now? That process At least you're done there. And the orange that was left from this, I squeezed onto those oranges. So we have good flavor. I'm sure this is going to be nice. This way, this will simmer. The bones won't be going in here for another maybe an hour and a half. The duck, let's see what it looks like. Has been cooking now for about 45 minutes. And we're getting beautiful color. So in another 10-12 minutes, what I'm going to do is lower it. As I said, you don't want to cook at high heat all the way. And then later, when we do clean, we take the meat off of the bone, we're going to lift up the skin and we're going to scrape out the fat also. Because you don't want to be eating all that fat. Because the sauce is going to be outstanding, and that's what's going to make the dish. It always makes the dish a good sauce. The oranges have been simmering in there for about a half hour. To help this along a little, we use this stick and that smoothed that out quite a bit. And just to take a look at it and make it easier later when we have to thicken this and strain it. I'll be doing it again in a little while. Now it's been an hour and a half. The last half hour was at 275. Now you take the fork and you just get under the breast there, stick it in, lift up the duck, and pour the juices and if you see a reddish haze, that means it's not done yet. All of that liquid and fat that comes out of there has to be clear. So that was at an hour and a half. Now we'll go for another half hour at the same temperature. Now what is so dangerous about the duck is all this grease. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pour this off first before I put it back in the oven. Now what I did do, I reserved some of the fat, a little bit, there'll be more. Don't forget we have to make the roux to thicken it. But if you're really opposed to making a roux, you can use cornstarch and water, equal amounts. And after all the sauce is done, just drizzle it in and you'll get your thickness done. Now one more time we're going to test the duck, see what kind of juices are going to flow. And what I'm going to do now is take out the vegetables that are in there and put it into the stock. Now after taking all the vegetables out, putting in the stock, I'm going to test it again for the color of the juices. And that's more brown, it's not red. So that's it. This was 2 hours. Now we have to let this cool before we bone it out, unless you have hands of steel. Now the difficult part is boning these things out. If you really don't want to deal with that, then just cut it straight down the middle, break the bones in the back, and let the person eating it play with it. But we can't do that. So what we do is, when you feel the breastbone, geez, I haven't blown one of these out in about 20 years. You have to follow, let the knife follow down. Similar to doing a piece of fish. You see, feel bone, just keep on going. If something stops you, raise the knife a little, go a little more. Boning this out is a little different than chicken, is because the bones are different. Once you see, you lift up, there's the breast, the leg bone. You want to go to the right of the leg bone. If I had a bigger board, I put the board on the stove. It's not big enough, and I don't want to make a mess. So then you have to turn under. It's still a little warm. There's the breastbone, which we don't want attached. Now we got it. Very hot. And once you get one side off, now to this, that's done. I'll do the other side and then break up the skeleton. Now that it's boned out and the body is in the stock, now boiling up, in a half hour we're going to strain that and make the sauce. Normally I would take this part of the wing off, put it in the stock, but people here like to have crispiness. And as you see, the inside, there's no pink really, but what we're going to do, the oven is at 170. 15 minutes before I'm ready to serve, I'm going to put this back in the oven so it'll be hot. And I said we're going to scrape the fat off the, look, there's nothing. Everything dripped down into the pan perfectly. So next thing is here is 2 tablespoons of the duck fat, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour to that. That'll thicken up the sauce. And there is this stock. I added more liquid, almost a quart more, because you have to have enough liquid in there to cook the bones. So if you were making this dinner, I would start this 6 hours prior, because a half hour from now, 45 minutes, the bones are coming out. Then of course it'll probably be too much stock for just 2 people, and you want it concentrated, so then you have to reduce it. till it comes to about maybe a cup or a cup and a half. I might as well get the oranges ready. That's a nice chunk of butter. We're going to saute this quickly along with the pieces of orange peel. Which quite often, when they boil up the orange peel, they throw sugar in it. But like I said, I don't want to add any sweetness to this at all. There's enough sugar in the Chambord, which we're going to put in here. You're going to saute this with that. The butter might burn a little, which I'm looking forward to, flavor. Okay, that butter is ready to brown, so now we'll just add the orange and orange. And we'll toast that a little bit. Very high flame. This will look pretty on the top of the duck. And we'll add, this might flambe, so don't get scared, a little bit of the Chambord, or if you want to use triple sec or Gran Marnier. And then what we'll do is we'll just set this aside. And that looks pretty good, because just before I'm ready to serve the duck, we'll put this on top. Now that the bones have been removed from the stock, we can go about finishing this up. So into there, I'm going to add this roux and let it cook down. You could take a whip and whip this in, but what I'm going to do is use that speed stick could have used a little rubber spatula to get this out, but okay, that should be enough, because we do not want a thick sauce. This will smooth it out. And incorporate the roux into this. That takes care of that part. Now, as you see, it's slightly thickened. I should have told you how much is in here, but I think it's about a quart. Well, the worst thing that could happen is when you remove all the bones and you put that amount of roux that I made, that's 2 tablespoons of the duck fat and 2 tablespoons of flour. If it winds up being too thick, then you just add a little water or stock. If it's too thin, just cook it down until it gets just to be about like this. I'm going to let this cook for another 10 minutes. And then we're going to have duck for dinner. So you know when a sauce is ready if it coats the back of a spoon. Like so. So that is done. Now I'll put together the plate and we'll see how it looks. I forgot one important part. Let's put the Chambord. So pour in about so. And after that's in there, then you take a spoon and you taste it. And if it needs anything, it's probably salt. So we'll put a little salt in there and we're ready. And here is the finished plate. The sauce on the duck. Put some of the orange on the duck, and there you go. And you put this in front of the person, the duck facing them at 6 o'clock. Hope you enjoy.